Thank you for joining us. I'm going to share some practical tips from Workforce Solutions on basic interviewing and then how to thrive in your new job. This is primarily for people who may want to participate in on-the-job training program. You will have received a file called Career Building Document Pack with 7 documents. It contains interview checklist, 30-second speech, common interview questions, questions to ask or not ask, new job checklist, how to thrive, not just survive, and a knowledge check. These will be referred to in this slide deck as you go through it. Our objectives here is to understand the basic errors people make in interviews, how to prepare for an interview, learn what is important when starting a new job, learn what can help you be successful in your new job, and steps to thrive, not just survive, in your new job. What does a good interview look like compared to a bad interview? We're going to share with you things our Workforce Solutions recruiters say people don't do well in interviews, and also things they found successful interviews do. The candidate on the right is doing a number of things that aren't good for an interview. We're going to pause for 30 seconds while you look at the candidate and list what they are doing wrong. I hope some of the things we list you saw in the picture also. For example, wearing earphones, even one is wrong. Wearing sunglasses, disheveled clothing and grooming, body language like slouching, invading the interviewer's space, not facing the interviewer, no eye contact. Having your cell phone and food with you, crumpled resume that isn't very attractive. There are other things, but those are the key ones. These are mistakes we see our candidates making every day that send the signal to the hiring person that the interview just doesn't think this is very important. Even if this person actually gave a great interview, their first impression is awful and will live through the interview. Now here we have a candidate who's doing the right things in an interview. We're going to pause for 30 seconds again while you list things that they're doing right. One of the more important things the candidate is doing that we commonly forget about is body language. If you notice, she's sitting upright but not stiff. She's leaning slightly forward, and that says, I'm interested. She's using hand gestures. They're not clenched together in her lap. She has direct eye contact with the person she's interviewing. Her feet are flat on the ground. She has neat, serious dress and grooming. She doesn't have distracting accessories. You don't see any cell phone or headphones, minimal jewelry, and her resume is folded and neat. This candidate is clearly letting the hiring person know they think this is an important interview. It's a great first impression. One of the biggest issues we hear from candidates is their concern about answering questions correctly when they prepare for an interview. Being prepared is the key to answering questions. A large percent of interview questions are quite common, and knowing that, you can prepare how to answer them or similar ones in advance to look prepared and confident, even though you might be nervous. So to start, plan answers to common questions. Read the common interview questions from the document pack and practice them. Another thing is have your 30-second speech ready. There's a 30-second speech worksheet in your document pack. This gives a great start to the interview when the interviewer asks, "Tell me about yourself." You'll look confident and prepared. Research the company who is interviewing you and find out where your interests and theirs have a common intersection, and that way you can talk about what interests you that the company does. It also impresses the interviewer that you actually researched the company. And finally, prepare questions you will ask in advance and write them down for when you're asked. Do you have any questions? These basic preparation steps will go a long way in a successful interview. We're going to focus on having a great first day at work. This lays a foundation for your future success, and new hires often don't focus on that first day as a foundation when they're starting a new job. We're going to have a video that I'm going to play for you, and I want you to pay particular attention to a few things. What are the most important things to do when starting? What are the biggest challenges you need to overcome? And what do they say about your new boss and coworkers?
Welcome back, everyone. A new year, a new job, and some of you are fortunate enough to have found a new one. If so, how to navigate your way through. Here with some tips, John Owen from Robert Half International. Thank you so much for coming in. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Same to you, Lisa. Thanks.
When do we stop saying Happy New Year?
I think January you're still allowed.
Okay, all right. We'll wait till February 1st and it's all done.
We'll stop.
All right, what is the problem with the big challenge with getting a new job?
Well, I think it's, you've got so much to learn and you want to show yourself as being great right off the bat. Mm-hmm. So you don't know policies, you don't know procedures, you don't know technology, you don't know the people, yet you want to make a great first impression. It's tough to accomplish both.
And you guys did a survey. And looking at this, and let's take a look at what the survey said. I feel like I'm on Family Feud. Okay,
survey said, number one thing, 44% learning policies and procedures.
Right.
Because you're at a new company,
right,
and you have to learn that. And then the next one, which is interesting, both managers and workers agreed. 20% was getting to know your boss, mm-hmm, getting to know your coworkers.
Right.
And then trying to learn technology and trying to, figure out the corporate culture. All those things play into what makes it so difficult to adjust.
All right, so how do we make it work? What are the tips that you have?
Well, first of all, right off the bat, clarify the expectations. Sit down with your boss and go, what do I need to learn and how fast do you need me to learn that? Mm-hmm. So that you don't want a situation where you're going, oh, I'm right on track, and the boss is going, why is this person so slow?
Right, and then find someone within the company who can be sort of your role model, your mentor.
Right, exactly. Find somebody who's experienced, who understands how to do things there, and watch what they do. It's kind of those unwritten rules you want to pay attention
mm-hmm,
to.
And so that's what you're saying. Take some time to watch, listen, and learn before you align yourself with someone.
Right, so you can watch a top performer. My big warning is you're not a top performer yet, so if they do anything wild, doesn't mean you can do it yet, but watch what they do.
All right, and so you say go out for lunch or coffee. With whom?
Your coworkers.
Okay.
Get to know them outside of the work environment, and you'll start to pick up more about the culture and the type of people that are successful there.
Okay, and equally you're saying travel in different circles, ask
right,
questions, and strike a balance.
Strike a balance. You want to be great, you can be great, be enthused, but just don't be over the top until you really understand the rules of the road.
Mm-hmm. And it goes back to something else you said, is that 90-some% of being successful is that people like you.
Exactly. You like working where you like people, well, they want to like you too. And so fitting in is as important as having great technical skills.
And you know what, I always hear it said by like the new person who comes in that sort of sits at their desk and doesn't interact, always sort of sticks out like a sore thumb, so it keeps people guessing. But if you talk to that person, they'll say, well, I just don't want to get involved in all the office politics. But they're doing themselves a disservice.
Right. Putting your head down and just doing your job is really not the right way to become part of a team. We've been talking about Ravens all day,
yeah,
and will be all week. You want to be part of the team. You want everybody to feel like you belong there and that you fit in. And that's all about getting to know people and the soft skills, mm-hmm, and those, mm-hmm, sorts of things.
And while you may not be the best or the leader of the pack, you can be the best at something that you do, so people look to you for that.
Right. Everybody's not going to be Ray Lewis.
Right. But everybody else, but you can be Ray Rice on the team or something else.
You can be very
Okay.
impactful.
All right, great. Thanks, John. Good advice.
Thanks.
Stay with us.
So what did the video say about the important challenges in starting a new job? What were the top 2 challenges that they said in starting a new job right at the beginning of the video? Well, if you remember the first one, 40% of the people surveyed said that understanding policy and procedure is very important. Well, that's no surprise. That's learning what you need to do in your new job. The second one was getting to know your people. They didn't expect to get that response. It's so important to get to know your people. They can be vital to your success if you know what your people that you work with do, so you can tap them for information. So what other things did they talk about? Well, learn expectations, including when you need to learn things by in addition to what they are. Now, on-the-job training program participants will have a training plan to follow with dates, but there will still be things to learn that aren't on there. Watch, listen, and learn. You might be a top performer, but you're not one yet. Learn how people do things. Learn how the company likes to get things done. So what did they say about your new boss and coworkers? Well, for starters, get to know your boss and coworkers. This is how you find out who to go to. Connect with others at your workplace to be noticed and to progress. Don't isolate yourself and put your head down and just work. Many people think this is the way to make a good impression, but it's not. Connect with other people. Ask questions. Find out who does what. Where are things? This is how you know who to go to and where to go. Learn what people next to you do so you can cover for them, or even make improvement suggestions, since you know more than just your own part. And again, find a role model. Look for a company veteran and see what they do. You might not be able to do what they do yet, but you can learn. Now we'll go through what can help you be successful in your new job. A first impression is one of the most important things to establish, so it's very important to have a good start. You might ask, though, why is it so important to have a good start and a good impression? Well, for starters, it only takes 12 seconds to form a first impression, according to research. That doesn't give you much time, so it's important to be prepared to make that first impression. And not only that, you don't get a second chance for a first impression. There's no do-overs. A good impression or a poor impression will stay with you. As a new employee, you'll have stumbles. A good impression will help overcome those. If you make a poor impression and then you have stumbles, it only confirms the poor impression. On your first day, you need to focus on making a first impression multiple times as you meet people. People often don't focus on doing this. So we're going to review things you do before your first day so you can concentrate on activities that make that good first impression. And then things to do on your first day to support and continue that first impression. So we're going to start with things that you can do before you start so you can focus on making that all-important good impression. The new job checklist from your document pack has many of these, and it helps to have it in hand as we go through this if you can. One of the first things you need to pay attention to is your clothing. Make sure you have the proper clothes for your new position. If you're not sure of the type of clothing you need to wear, contact the hiring manager, your recruiter, or human resources to confirm the right clothing. It might be different from what you're used to wearing on a job. If you get new clothing, try them all on to make sure they fit before your first day. You don't want to try and put on your shirt for your first day and discover it's too small. Assemble outfits before your first day so you don't scramble. We recommend laying out 3 days worth of clothing in separate piles, so all you have to do is pick it up, put it on, and go. Some important things to bear in mind is you don't want to wear worn, dirty, or torn clothes, even if the tears are fashionable. I would recommend avoiding logo or imprinted shirts until you find out what's acceptable at your workplace. Don't have scuffed, dirty, or damaged shoes. No open toes, high heels, sandals, or thongs, or extreme styles like high-lift shoes. When you walk up to people that you don't know in your new location, people sometimes tend to drop their eyes as you pass. What do they see? Your shoes. Don't wear overly tight or skin-revealing clothing, and pants without a belt or pants that aren't fitted to your waist. Avoid flashy jewelry or overwhelming accessories like huge belt buckles, giant earrings, gaudy rings, bracelets, piercings, flashy hair. I would avoid cologne, perfume, or other scents. Just go natural. I would also not wear hats or caps unless you need them for your job. We recommend reviewing your trip to your new job, even doing a trial run to account for delays. Attendance and promptness are vital to companies today, and you don't want to make your first impression as someone who's late to work. Research the route to your job location. It might be different than what you took to get to your interview. If your job is in the same location as an interview, review it anyways. Do a trial run to make a cushion for delays. Remember, you may be parking at a different location than where you work, and you want to account for the time it takes to get from parking to where you work. Google Maps or the smartphone application Waze shows times on your route so you can plan this. Both of these also have a later function where you can enter the future trip date and time of arrival and get notification of when to start driving on that day. If you commute by other means, here's some resources to help. Commute solutions can be for individuals or for companies. They can help plan a commute by almost any means. A carpool, a vanpool, bus, bike, rail, whatever works for you. Of course, there's also Metro. The ride planner and information at that address will help you plan your route on what buses and stations you need to use to get to work. Or you can call Metro at 713-635-4000. You may have already provided some of this at your interview. You should check to see if you need to bring them in again. But it never hurts to bring this stuff with you on references, work history, and documents. Bring your list of references. Include the phone number, email, name, title, and what your connection is. Make a list of any past jobs. Now, you might have provided this on your resume, but your resume doesn't have contact information or a former supervisor. If you did this for your interview, that's great. Bring a copy anyway. If you have any awards or training certificates or certifications, bring copies of those. Companies often like to make copies of those for your file. If there's a required document for proof to work or licenses, you want to bring this with you. Remember, the proof to work documents that you bring cannot be copies, they have to be originals. Your employer will provide information on what you need to bring for proof to work. A workforce solutions recruiter may do this also in advance. If you did this in preparing for an interview, put everything in an envelope or folder or clip it together. Put it on top of that first day pile of clothing, so all you have to think about is putting on your clothing, picking up the envelope, and going. If you have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or other social media accounts, please review them and check them carefully if you didn't do it prior to your interview. Remove anything that is not good for public view. We like to say that anybody looking at those social media pages shouldn't see something that you'd be embarrassed by if it was up on Interstate 45 billboard. Check your security settings. Limit to key people if you want to do so. Remember, when you go to work in a new job, your coworkers or your new boss may look you up. Put your cell phone on mute during work hours and keep it in your pocket if you're allowed to have it with you. Some industries, such as chemical processing plants and refineries, prohibit cell phones, and you'll be fired if you're caught in the work site with a cell phone on you. Medical facilities may prohibit them as they interfere with sensitive medical equipment. Ask friends not to call during work hours unless it's an emergency. We are so used to having cell phones as an extension of ourselves, we sometimes forget they can be intrusive and give a bad impression. So keep that cell phone tucked away. If you have any appointments such as a doctor or dentist for yourself or others, try to get those out of the way before you start. If you have to do it after you start, disclose any appointments up front. Assemble a list of personal information to contact in an emergency. There should be at least 2 people. Make sure you have your correct mailing address, your home and cell phone number, alternate contact for those people so that they can be contacted in cases of emergency at work. If you are asked to take a drug test or a medical exam, make sure you get that done. For a drug test, don't forget to bring any prescriptions that you might be taking. Sometimes prescriptions can cause a false positive in a drug test. If they detect that and they know that you have a prescription, they will not hold that against the test. Complete any onboarding new hire documents you've been given and try to get them done completely. Plan not to bring weapons into the workplace, and that includes that little Swiss Army knife on your keychain. To review a few things you need to do before you start, here's a brief checklist. Put in one location the clothes you're going to be wearing on your first day. Any documents like I suggested in that envelope or clipped together. You might want to include a copy of the job description from the job posting so you can ask questions about what you're doing. Bring a notepad and a pen with you. Bring any work items you might need that your new employer may not provide. For example, you might wear prescription safety glasses. Not all employers provide that. Have everything ready so that when you leave, all you have to do is pick it up and you can focus on making a good impression. On the day you start, if you've prepared in advance, you'll be ready to make a good impression. This section is what to do or accomplish on that first day. If you have your new job checklist that you've worked on, bring that with you and fill out the relevant sections as you go. Like we saw in the video, the most important thing to do is listen, listen, and listen. It's okay to ask questions, especially to confirm what you've heard. Now be careful what you talk about. Don't gossip, badmouth people, or make comments about politics or religion. If you criticize past coworkers or company, your coworkers will wonder what you're saying about them when they're not around. Be nice to everybody. You don't have to go overboard, but just give them a smile and nod or say hello. Be nice to everyone you see or pass. This is all part of forming that first impression and then reinforcing it. The habit of introducing yourself is very valuable. What we do is we call it a cold introduction. No one's introducing you for you. So you need to learn how to do that so you can introduce yourself to everyone you meet. This is really important because you can learn who does what. Also, people are more likely to help you when they have that pleasant introduction. You won't be dependent on one person. You learn what they do and their names. You can look for the company veterans and decide who might be a good role model. You get to know a bunch of people, but you don't have to rush to immediately bond. You get to know your coworkers. When you introduce yourself, here's a tip. Repeat their name. You're much more likely to remember it if you hear it and repeat it than if you just hear it. Here's a script on how to introduce. Here's how to do it. Smile and say, "Hi, my name is Tony. I'm the new HR person." Most people will say their name and job in return. If they don't, ask. And then you conclude by saying, "It's nice meeting you," and repeat their name, and that way you remember it. One thing you want to do is develop a nice way of turning down a handshake, such as, "For your health and mine, let's just bump elbows." Don't be afraid to ask for help and advice. Your employer will prefer you ask. It's easier than fixing a mistake. Be flexible. If you can, come in early or stay late to learn your job. If you can do that, go ahead and do it. People who show flexibility stand out. Make sure you know these practices as soon as possible. Find out what the overtime rules are. Some companies control overtime very tightly, and you don't want to accidentally violate those rules. To start and to end the day, do you use a time clock? Do you fill out a timesheet? Do you log in on a PC or some other method? Find that out so you can start doing it right away. You might also have to log in and out for lunch or breaks. Make sure you know that. Do you tell anyone when you're leaving for the day? Even if there's a system to log out or connect up that you're going, sometimes a supervisor likes to get a shout out even though the person has officially punched out on some device. Try to get a tour of where you work if it's not offered. This way you find where departments are you might be using, such as storage, IT, HR, shipping, and so on. You find out where the break rooms, bathrooms, supply or tool storage are. On this, follow your supervisor's lead. They may have that first day planned. On-the-job training typically has a 6 to 8 week written training program that you follow. So you're going to want to keep your supervisor informed as to how you're doing. And you want to follow up on review dates if they forget. You're also going to have an on-the-job training coach that you need to communicate with on those dates. Make sure you do that. Talk with your supervisor and your on-the-job training coach about communication expectations and what's the best way to contact them. Do they prefer a phone call, a text, or in person? And make sure you do that. Understand the expectation of when as much as how from both your supervisor and on-the-job training coach. Your coach is there to help you. Make sure you connect well. Understand the attendance policy and expectations. How do you use allowable time off? What if you have an issue or a problem? Make sure you communicate these with both your supervisor and on-the-job training coach. Print out and review these two documents from your document pack. I've mentioned the new job checklist before. It has helpful reminders and items for you to help you perform better in your new job and gather information. Bring it with you to your new job when you start. There's also a sheet called How to Thrive, Not Just Survive. This is a list of activities and actions to continue on your good first impression. This is how to grow and how to impress people around you as you learn your new job. So, what are your next steps? First, draft your 30-second speech based on the worksheet to say to your recruiter. They may ask you to hear it. You'll be using this to introduce yourself in addition to answering the "Tell me about yourself" question in interviews. The second thing you need to do is to read the common interview questions sheet. Focus particularly on what answer you'd have for what's your greatest weakness, what's your greatest strength, and also questions to ask at the end when you are asked, do you have any questions? Practicing these gets you in the mindset of answering them, and you'll be a lot more confident when you go and start your day and do your interview. Your third step is to complete and return the knowledge check answers following the instructions in the bottom of the email. And your fourth step is to keep in touch with your recruiter. Don't forget to respond to their calls. Sometimes they have an opportunity with a very short time frame. Thank you for viewing the basic interview and first day tutorial. Now would be a good time to watch the success stories in OJT to learn more about people who have used this information in this program to start a new career.